Hola y bienvenido. Hello and welcome. 大家好，我是高凯伦. My name's Kellen Kautzman. You probably already know that. Today on the show, we're going to be doing all sorts of fun stuff. Numero uno. What the heck is MeWe? Do you know? I didn't, but apparently it is going way up in terms of number of folks interested in it. Is it like Parler, which is the conservative social platform? Not entirely sure. We're going to find out. Parler CEO fleeing his home after death threats. Ouch. That stings. It's not funny at all, obviously. I don't want anyone to suffer. And there's some suffering going on. Trump exits Twitter. Stock price plummets. Twitter, I'm not bullish on. I would not buy Twitter stock. Super Bowl or YouTube ads. What are the major players, Fortune 500s, doing in that regard? LinkedIn's free online classes. You might want to join in and learn something. Google agrees to pay for news in France. This is setting a precedent that is going to change global dynamics. Will it not? Hey, guess what? The show is going to start in 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh me, oh my. Let it be known, what the heck is MeWe? What we do on the show is we read articles when we don't have guests. These articles come from places like Fox Business, where this particular one comes from. MeWe, according to the article, is a social media app centered around data privacy. And it has seen a huge surge in downloads in recent weeks as big tech companies crack down on user content. The app that calls itself the anti-Facebook added 2.5 million users last week, bringing its total user base to 16 million, 50% of which live outside the U.S. MeWe spokesperson David Westreich told Fox Business, quote, people all over the world are leaving Facebook and Twitter in droves because they are fed up with the relentless privacy violations, surveillance capitalism, political bias, targeting, and newsfeed manipulation by these companies. MeWe solves these problems. Well, at least it does for the time being. Here's what happens. Here's the life cycle of a social media platform, and I would argue even the life cycle of a radio show, a life cycle of a TV network. You start out, you attempt to be objective, you attempt to be unbiased. It's like when you have kids. You've got all of these super ideological pie-in-the-sky ideas about how things are going to go, and then you ask them for the 39th time to please don't spill the crumbs of the muffin onto the ground. Eat over the plate. Eat over the plate. Over the plate. And for the 9,000th time, what, huh? And you go, bah! So this is what happens to Facebook, which is to say, Facebook is like, don't be racist. Don't be racist. Stop sharing racist content. Stop it. And you have an entire infrastructure of people whose job it is to make sure that that sort of stuff doesn't proliferate, that hate speech doesn't proliferate, and then before you know it, everyone hates you because you just can't do it right. Now, I am not saying by any stretch of the imagination that Facebook is perfect. I'm saying that they have to take stands on certain things and at certain times, and that leads to people like Mr. Westreich, David Westreich, able to hop in and say, they're garbage, and point to a laundry list of reasons as to why they are in fact garbage. And so personally, me and friends, we left the Facebook Messenger platform when we realized that that data was being used for advertising, which is ridiculous. It's not private. They're just like, hey, if you're going to use the Messenger platform, we can grab that data. We can serve you better ads. We can sell that data. That's not good. Drink tea. It's good for you. So tea of the day, oolong tea. You ever heard of that? If not, you might want to check it out. So what the heck is MeWe? It is a anti-Facebook, according to the founder. MeWe, which said it surpassed 8 million users in June, ranked number 7 overall and number 4 among social media apps by U.S. iPhone downloads on January 10th, according to mobile data and analytics provider App Annie. So the app on Thursday sat on number 14, blah, blah, blah. So you might want to check it out. Are you over Facebook? Leave a comment. Let me know. Are you pro-Facebook? Are you anti-Facebook? And why. Parler CEO fleeing his home after death threats. Quick summary. Parler, obviously the social media platform that had expansive and massive growth in lieu of people's anger and resentment at Twitter, Facebook, and what they believe is a move to the left from those particular platforms. Many of the folks on Parler are conservative. Parler CEO John Matza fled his home after receiving death threats, according to BusinessInsider.com. A lawyer for Matza said in a court filing on Friday. The lawyer, David Grosbeck, wrote in the document that Matza had to, quote, go into hiding with his family after receiving death threats and invasive personal security breaches. Ouch. So this is one of those things where I think people dream of being the next big social media platform CEO. They think to themselves, this is great. I would want to be a billionaire. I want to be a multimillionaire. I want that. I definitely count myself among the folks that has dreamt about it, thought about it, wanted it. I think the reality often, as is the case in this particular incarnation as a human being on this planet, orbiting the black hole at the middle of the Milky Way galaxy, traveling at over 500,000 miles per hour in its orbit around said black hole, is that the difficulty is real. And when you step into that millionaire, billionaire lifestyle status, things like death threats become very commonplace. It would not surprise me at all if at cocktail parties of millionaires and billionaires, they laugh about the countless death threats they receive all of the time from crazy people, crazy and violent people. So the new filing sought to seal parts of the suit as a safety measure. Amazon Web Services stopped hosting Parler in the days after the January 6th siege at the U.S. Capitol. In its own court filing last week, Amazon said Parler was both unwilling and unable to remove content that threatens the public safety, such as by inciting and planning the rape, torture, and assassination of named public officials and private citizens. So here you have it. It's easy at the onset of any company/media platform to say, free speech all the way. That's who we are. That's what we are. You're not going to change that. It is what it is. To me, it's similar to being in a relationship and being just as stubborn as is humanly possible. In the beginning, it's possible that you could just say, this is, for me, that's not going to fly. And you start drawing these lines in the sand. And it just becomes clear as time progresses that if you're not willing to compromise, there are going to be certain concessions you have to deal with. Specifically, Amazon Web Services stopping hosting you. They'll just go, okay, well, fine. Then we're not, people draw lines in the sand. You end up with this sort of thing. And then obviously as time progresses, Facebook and Twitter, they morph into something else because of all of the compromises that they have to make to maintain what they believe are their core ethics / grow and continue to appease stockholders. So supporters of President Donald Trump, some of whom communicated on Parler, again, back to the article, ahead of time, breached the Capitol and clashed with law enforcement. We all know this. Trump's Twitter account was suspended. We get it. So the CEO of Parler is dealing with the ramifications of being a millionaire and a billionaire. Now, you could make the argument, look, if you're a millionaire who owns a construction company, you're not going to receive the same amount of death threats. And you would have a point in making that argument. It's not as if amassing this fortune. You're a stock trader. You sit at home at your house. You make a bunch of great trades. Now you're a millionaire. It is very different, the world of, the Parler CEO from your standard millionaire and billionaire. But I would argue that this idea that money solves all problems is ludicrous on its face. Trump exits Twitter, drops stock price. I have said for many years now that for your standard small business, Twitter is just this sort of vacuous, meaningless place. There are, of course, small businesses where this is not the case, but by and large, when it comes to SEO, I don't see links in the back end of Google Search Console to translate that into English. It doesn't appear that what we do on Twitter has an effect on Google rankings. Google rankings are the primary source of business for many small and mid-sized businesses through their Google Maps listing and their organic rankings. And so Twitter is propped up, in my mind, at least, by the Trumps of the world, by the news anchors, by the celebrities, that sort of thing. And unsurprising to me that Twitter would see a drop in its stock price. This from Bloomberg.com, just like Donald Trump, Twitter Inc. stockholders have lost out this month. While the former president was being permanently banned from the social media platform in the wake of the riot at the U.S. Capitol, investors were seeing the value of their holdings shrink. Twitter stock is down 12% thus far in 2021 based on its early trading on Thursday, at one stage slipping back below the $45.10 mark at which the stock opened on the day of its initial public offering in 2013. Okay, let that sink in. It's down 12% and at one stage slipping below its initial stock price. This is how I feel about Twitter. So I agree entirely with the market. It does not seem to me that Twitter is standing on solid footing. I think that they are, honestly, I think they're toast. And MySpace comes to mind. Back to the article, the January performance is the weakest among components of the S&P 500 index, which itself is up about 2.5% years to date. So is this dude bullish on Twitter? Not even close. Not even close. Super Bowl or YouTube ads? Well, let's go back to Twitter real quick. So they keep talking about monetizing it in some sort of way. And as we've covered in previous episodes, I just don't see it. I don't see why someone would spend $5 a month. Can Twitter turn into a Netflix and start creating content? Maybe. That might be one of the only ways that they could turn to something that actually makes sense at like a $4.99 a month package. Like, why would you subscribe to some Twitter subscription? I don't understand it. Twitch is destroying the game. That's an Amazon company, a Bezos company. A lot of the streamers on Twitch are now YouTube famous. So there's a lot of transition. I should say there's a lot of, what's the word to describe it? It's like crossover. Like you become Twitch famous and you basically are YouTube famous. Some of the folks I can mention by name are GM Naroditsky, who's a Grandmaster chess player, and GM Hikaru, just because I'm a chess guy. But obviously it's quite easy to port that fan base over to YouTube, as Twitch is a video meme or a video platform. SearchEngineJournal.com, moving right along. Super Bowl or YouTube ads. Is it still worth it to invest in Super Bowl ads in 2021? Why is YouTube a good alternative? So just on its face, it seems ridiculous to me that people are even talking about Super Bowl ads. But then again, I work predominantly with small and mid-sized businesses. So let's dive in. Okay, so where's the money likely to go? So from SearchEngineJournal.com, well, whether they want to build brand awareness, boost traffic, generate qualified leads, or improve conversions. Many of the marketing executives at the brands listed above, so we're talking about Little Caesars, Kia, Pepsi, Pop-Tarts, Reese's, Hummus. They're not returning after their debut last year. Many of the marketing executives of those companies learned about the following. YouTube is number one in ads-supported reach among cord cutters and cord never households on connected TV devices, according to a U.S. ComScore census. YouTube has the highest reach and viewing hours among ad-supported streaming devices. It reaches 77% of households. YouTube reaches more 18 to 49-year-olds than all linear TV networks combined. So, I mean, we don't even need to move further into this. It's obvious to me that YouTube is where the money is. I personally subscribe to the premium, which I think you probably, well, I shouldn't say you should. Depends on your budget, obviously. But, man, YouTube with no ads is absolutely spectacular. I think the era of the Super Bowl commercial is dying, by way of Twitter, by way of radio, by way of television in general. LinkedIn's free online classes, this from businessinsider.com, whether you're aspiring to jump into a new field or want to stand out in your current one. It helps to know what applicants are actually getting hired for. Looking at videos from active LinkedIn Learning users, LinkedIn found the courses that recently hired members were more likely to watch. They include tutorials for hard skills like project management and software development, as well as broader career development tips, such as interviewing advice and resume. Okay. So below are the top classes watched by recent hired employees in LinkedIn, free until the end of this month, January 31st. The top 5 hard skills applicants are being hired for in 2021 are software development. So if you just do a search for software development LinkedIn career classes, you can find it. Python for data science essential training. Hello. Best of luck with that. Programming foundations, object-oriented design, programming foundations, algorithms. Algorithms are crucial to programming, obviously. Certification prep Scrum Master. To get certified as a Scrum Master, you have to pass this exam. Certification prep PMI Agile Certified Practitioner. Whoa. Data analysis, SQL essential training, Six Sigma, and then it moves on to digital marketing. But just to touch base on that, I mean, I find it fascinating that one of the things Jordan Peterson often talks about is that, you know, there is a segment of the population whose IQ is less than 80, and the Army won't take applicants, according to Peterson, with IQs lower than 80. And so, yes, we do have all of these classes for free online, but there is a barrier to entry. I'm not making an argument for universal basic income, but what I am saying is that, a certain IQ is certainly required to be able to even dive into this world, I would argue. A certain amount of literacy. That's a fairly daunting list. So perhaps we can find something that's not as daunting. Here we've got digital marketing tools, learn how to navigate different types of marketing from social media to email, SEO, etc. Product management is another class that you could take. Becoming a product manager, the top 5 career development skills to work on in 2021. And then it moves on to things like expert tips for answering common interview questions, resume makeover, creating great first impressions, blah, 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 blah. So point being that if any of those things are of any interest to you, they are free on LinkedIn until the 31st of this month. Just do a Google search for LinkedIn classes. Google agrees to pay for news in France. This is somewhat important news given the fact that we've covered Google's back and forth in Australia. A lot of the cookie privacy policy issues that came as a result of the EU creating certain restrictions, and also the California-based legislation. All of that is to say that I'm starting to see the cracks in the foundation of Google as the world is basically biting back. This from CNBC.com. Google said Thursday it will pay French publishers for news content in a major digital copyright deal. The agreement comes after several months of talks between Google and France and the media groups, which are represented by France's Alliance de la Presse d'Information Générale Lobby. Google said it would negotiate individual licenses with members of the alliance that cover related rights and open access to a new mobile service from the company called News Showcase. Newspapers would be remunerated based on contributions to political and general information, daily volume of publications, and monthly internet audience. So multiple ways that the French publishers would be remunerated. Quote, after long months of negotiations, this agreement is an important step, which marks the effective recognition of the neighboring right of press publishers and the start of their remuneration by digital platforms for the use of their online publications. Pierre Louet, CEO of L'Echo newspaper, said in a statement on Thursday. Wow. So big precedent being set here. Why is that? Well, Google being an American company, obviously, not everyone has the same love for all of the revenue sticking around the United States. They want a piece of it, and they also want to defend the people of their country. And so it makes a lot of sense to me that the various governments of the world are going to fight these fights to get their people paid. Now, is it easy to fight Google on this front? No. I'm sure Google makes it very expensive legally to even attempt the fight. So one of the questions I think that needs to be answered here is, what did the French government do financially to fight this fight? Is it worth it for the other countries of the world? And ultimately, will America continue to be a dominant force in tech? because a lot of our companies are global. Facebook, YouTube, Google, Apple, Microsoft. I mean, it's incredible what American companies have done in leading the charge. And so, is this a crack in the foundation of Google? It's a small one, but they are so massive that does it really matter? No. Is there a crack in the armor? Yes. Does it ultimately matter? I really don't think so. So, to summarize, what is MeWe? MeWe is a reaction to Facebook, to the privacy violations, to the political atmosphere that some folks are viewing from the platform. Will it grow into a force that actually fights Facebook? I think we're going to have a second tier of social media platforms that are going to fight against Facebook, and I think one of them will become dominant. It will be difficult to know which will. The demographic of Facebook is aging. It is a global force, so it's not going anywhere anytime soon. It is monetizing at a ridiculous rate. Facebook is very, very profitable. But the next generation of parlors, MeWe, they're growing. They're coming. They are the oak tree at the forest floor, if you will. Parlor CEO is understanding that there is a cost of expansive growth of mass media attention, having to flee from his home after death threats came in. If you are conservative and you are looking for a place that is not Facebook, Parler obviously should be on your radar. To the folks who say, oh, Parler's not that conservative, I went on Parler. It's very conservative as far as I could tell. Trump exits Twitter, drops stock price. I do feel like the Trumps of the world are propping up this platform. And I'm not bullish on Twitter long term. Their stock price dropped beneath their initial public offering of $45.10, which is a very bad sign. Super Bowl or YouTube ads, they're dead as far as I can tell. We are definitely in the future, you could say. LinkedIn's free online classes. Yeah. I don't think the vast majority of people listening to this are going to go take a MySQL course or learn Python. But digital marketing is, I think, some pathway that you could look towards if you are looking for a career change. If you're going to learn how to code, get your learning cap on. It's tough. Digital marketing is as well. But even just exploring these classes, they're free. They're online until the 31st. If any of the ones I mentioned earlier make you feel motivated, check them out. And then a new precedent being set in France. Google agreeing to pay for news. Will they have to do this in multiple countries around the world? We shall see. Marketing as a foreign language, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. As many of you know, we have had a lot of guests recently, and that's been a lot of fun. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, give us an email, info@senditrising.com. That's info@senditrising.com. We'll get you on the calendar. 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Available on iTunes, Spotify, and a bunch of other podcast platforms as well. If you do leave a comment in chat, if you hit the like button, or leave a comment in the comment section, I should say, you are helping with the algorithm, and we genuinely appreciate it. That is the show for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for swinging on by, and we will see you for tomorrow's show, where we will all collectively achieve enlightenment. Class dismissed.